peu de la pub, tu vois.
Hein, pardon?
On se fait un peu de pub, le temps que le temps se...
Ah, non, non, ça va, ça va. Okay. But, so, let's go ahead. What we saw right now are just the overview, the technology, server topology, project management stuff. Now, I would like to show you some information about the architecture capabilities inside of Visual Studio ILM from Microsoft. So, if you remember the Scrum cycle, we began with planning, then we have design, development, testing, and development. Now I'm in the stage of doing some design. Okay, doing design in a project is not absolutely a simple thing to do, because you have to think absolutely about the picture of your project, how your project looks like at the end, just to begin with the architecture stuff, and to finalize the stuff as a product as well at the end. Okay? So, to do that, Visual Studio Ultimate, because it is one of the editions of the client editions of Visual Studio, which is Ultimate, Microsoft have made a lot of improvements to integrate UML integration into Visual Studio. So, in the beginning, when we talk about Microsoft or Microsoft employees about UML, they will absolutely shoot you. You are crazy. That's the answer you get. But because of a lot of feedback from us as project employees or from the customers about the need of the UML integration with Microsoft product, and in case of Visual Studio ILM, they must do that, and it is done in Visual Studio Visual Studio Ultimate 2010. Now it is part of the product, and I will absolutely show you what Microsoft did in that case. So before that, this is the feedback that Microsoft gets from the customers and from the community about the architecture and about the architecture stuff or design stuff with Microsoft products. So you see, no UML modeling, not one time, many times. Okay? Then, cannot enforce system architecture. I can't get my system architecture. How? Okay? Then, I can't combine my architecture with my source code at the end, or with my source code and the repository or something like that. I can't do that. And difficult to view the models by those without team. Then we have the limited visualization of the existing systems. We have an existing system, but we have to make some modifications. You must absolutely know how a system interacts or how a system is built in order to fix a bug or to add a new functionality to that system. It is absolutely a must. Its learn curve is very high, which will take you to the right place in order to make your code or to make your modification of the code or to fix your bug or to add new functionality. So that is the feedback received by Microsoft, but I understood from you guys that you already know with UML in file modeling language. Everything knows about that? That is just design perspective or design concept we use just to design our architecture or our software. So, from that perspective, we have a lot of diagrams. Yeah? If we talk about UML, we talk about use case diagram, which is the first one you begin with. Okay? Then, the sequence diagram, activity diagram, deployment diagram. Okay? Then we have the whole architecture, which is application layer diagram of the architecture. Okay? That kind of all diagrams, it is now possible to make them behind or inside Visual Studio Ultimate. Okay? Let's go ahead. To begin, this is just a screenshot from Visual Studio. And I will show you how we make that screenshot live. Okay? This is just what you name activity diagram from Visual Studio. Okay? Then, the other one, this is use case diagram from Visual Studio as well. That are all models that are available inside Visual Studio to make. As you see, we have, in case of use case diagram, we have the actors and we have use cases which have some relationship with each other. Some are included and the other ones are associated with each other. Then to make some functionality of your project available. Okay? Then, that is something we name the sequence diagram. Yeah? This is just a sequence of your application. first step must be done, then get some result, then it will be back, and it's just one sample of the payment sequence. If you want to do some payment stuff, it looks like this one. And that are the component diagrams of your system. You have a lot of components inside the system, and you have to make a diagram from it in order to capture the whole architecture stuff. That's how you do that. And you see the relationship between the interfaces and between other things there. So, this is something we can do from the beginning, from Visual Studio, just generating class diagrams. Right? We can do that from 2005 to 2003 stuff, 2003, 2005, 2008, and 2010. It looks like a little bit physio diagrams, looks like, but it isn't. Or SQL Server diagrams as well. It looks like the same. Okay? Then, everything you create, in order to create the diagrams, it will be stored in a Model Explorer. The Model Explorer is just a container where you store all the UML activities or parts that will make a part of one of other diagram there. All the activities you make will be stored here in the Model Explorer. Okay? That is a very, very interesting thing. How many of you is working on a project, and inside the project we made an architecture graph. That architecture graph, that is something we can post on the door or something like that at the project manager office, or behind our board or something like that, because that is the architecture of our system. That must be done. That kind of architecture things, you can make it now inside Visual Studio. Just for many different systems. Just for Windows client machines, systems, for web machines or web systems, just for web services, for mobile devices. Now you have the ability to make that kind of diagrams, and that are validated as well. It's not only just a graph, just something, just draw it and that's all. No, you can absolutely validate that. You can validate the parts of your architecture, which is the separation of concerns. When we talk about the architecture, we talk about some things. First, the presentation layer. The presentation layer, or the graphical user interface. Okay? It can be a mobile device, or it can be whatever, or web application, or Windows application, or whatever. Okay? Then we have the business logic layer. The business logic layers, all the rules of your application are stored there. That business logic layer can be combined in case you use web services. That can be combined with web services layer. Okay? Then we have the data access layer, because we have to interact from our business with our database, and that interaction can be made with the data access layer we made. All stuff and all logic that will be interacted with the database, that will do some stuff to getting information from the database or store information to the database from the business logic layer, that must be done in that one, in data access layer. We don't need and we don't want to make some system that interacts from the view to the model. If we are talking about model view controller pattern, is that now model view controller pattern MVC? That is now. That is as well the comparison of concerns. Okay. So what you want, just for the demo purposes, okay, it's no matter to do that. But what we advise is when you are busy with software development, you have absolutely first to think about your architecture. Okay? Architecture in the terms of separation of all the concerns I mentioned before. So I would absolutely not like, from my view or from my presentation layer to interact with my model. No, both does absolutely none of each other. But they do the magic together, but they do absolutely not together for each other. All the logic will be done by my business layer and into the data access layer, then to the database. Correct? Okay. And my database does absolutely about which device of which graphical user interface will present the information to the customer or to the user. It doesn't matter. You ask me something, I will give you what you ask, that's all. Or you give me something, I will put it for you on the database, that's all. How you do that and who would do that and why and how, it doesn't matter. Okay? So, then, I would like to ask you a question. How often you come into the project, you are coming into a company or customer, they have already a project gone. How many of you is usual starting with a new project? How many of you? شكون فيكم اللي كيجي عند شي شركه وكيمشي ديما كيدغي لي بروجي نوفو يلاه كيستارتي ديما لو نوفو؟ شكون فيكم؟ امبوسيبل ملي كتكون جاي ديما غادي في التران غادي بيك ولا بلا بيك، ولكن ملي كيجيو كيعيطوا عليك حتى انت كتركب وغادي صافي دير راهي الخدمه راه تدار ديجا، الا ديفلوبمون تدار ديجا، الا انت جاي صافي خصك انت دير شي حاجه، ولكن باش دير ديك شي حاجه خصك تكون عندك واحد ليدي ديال اشنو تدار بعدا، باش يا اما دولوكا الا باغي تفيكسي واحد البوغ تمايا، ولا باغي دير عاوتاني اجوتي سي فونكسيوناليتي زعما نوفو، خصك تعرف شنو كيفاش داك السيستم زعما انتيغريتي، خصك تعرف اش من بيس غادي تدير فيها البوغ فيكس ولا غادي تاجوتي فيها ديك الفونكسيوناليتي، سينو سي فري ولا لا؟ بون in that case we have now the ability from Visual Studio Outils to help you to do that, and that is made dependency graph. The dependency graph that gives you a view of your system, in this case based on 3 possibilities: by assembly, by namespace, or by class. It's just what you want. If you have an application and you want to see how my application is implemented, you can wait the dependency graph to get all the information you get from your application. And you can absolutely zoom into the pieces of that graph to see what classes, what properties, what methods are part of that system you will have. Okay? So, skip that. This other graph I will show you so. And that is the relationship between the namespaces in the case of dependency graph by namespace and the other part of the system. But I will show you live. Okay, let's go to the codes. Go. So, what you see here from Visual Studio is go away. And go away. Okay. What you see here is from Visual Studio, is just Solution Explorer. I have my solution named Nerd Dinner. It's just a funny application, just a web application based on MVC technology. Okay. That contains 3 projects, which are my web application, which is Nerd Dinner, and the test projects of that application. If you are familiar with MVC, and when you create MVC project from Visual Studio, that gives you the ability to generate a test project for that project you want to do. If you want, if you don't want, you can't escape that. Okay? So, but in this case, I choose to make a test for that. So, and the model project. Model projects, inside that project, I stored all models of my application. Okay? What I see here is just the assembly of the dependency graph of this application based on assembly, by assembly. Okay? When I double click that dependency graph will be opened for me, and it looks like this. That is just on one DLL. But main application have more than one DLL. Okay? Now, let me do that live from my Solution Explorer. See here, and I will do architecture because you have the ability right now. Here is it. So, architecture, generate dependency graph, and you have the abilities. That are 3 out-of-the-box abilities here that you can absolutely create your own custom ability if you want. Okay? So, what you have to do now, when we talk about assembly, I do by assembly. The magic what now happens behind the scenes is a lot of information is now encapsulated and a lot of information is now collected. Then the building of the assemblies takes place live based on the source code for the application, and the analyzing of the assemblies must also be done, and then it will calculate the graph for me, the graph layout. Calculation will take place. And when everything is done, I will absolutely get the view by assembly of my application and the relationship between the parts of the assemblies of my application. Does it make sense? Right. So, come on, we don't have enough time to wait for you. Yes, you see, the building is done. The analyzing of the assemblies is now taking place. And when that is done, then the calculation. When the calculation is done, then we will see something to show. Okay? We are almost done. You see, that is the dependency graph of my application based on assembly. I can now see that I have 3 projects on my code, which the nerd application and the test application of the nerd. Yeah? The model projects is not part of that, and you get information about which one. This one is just the DLL, and you see all the information about it. That is just the nerd DLL. It's category assembly, category DLL file, the pipe where it's stored, the group, and the assembly information, and the strong name information of that assembly. Okay? This assembly is stored in your project, and it is now visualized otherwise. So, what I can do now here is just to double click here on this one, just to step into the more information of that assembly. Okay? When you do that, you see that it is a little bit small. You see that this application, I can't see because the color is black. Okay, now let me see from here. You can see now, if I double click some piece of that, you see the dependency of that part with the rest of the project. By the way, what you see here, this one and that one, they have another color than the 2 assemblies of my application. Why? Because we are now developing, or this application is developed in Visual Studio. As you know, Visual Studio makes use of .NET Framework. .NET Framework that gives you the ability, a lot of stuff that you can get from .NET Framework. All the things happens inside Visual Studio. It takes part of .NET Framework. So that for the application that are just external things, I can delete them from the graph and doesn't matter, no problem. And that can absolutely not affect my architecture. Okay? So when I click this one, you see which relationship and which parts of the system depends on that. Okay? Again, the other one, you see the same thing. You see the same thing. When I double click this one, I step into that until the code. From the model into the code. Right? With some of you, we just talk about code generation. You maybe about code generation from code generation of the other lady that's gone. We are talking about code generation from models. That's exactly the same idea. From Visual Studio Ultimate, one thing to keep in mind: it gives you the ability to make your diagrams, your graphs, and to generate the code from the model. From the code to the model, and from the model to the code. But the first one is available from the product out of the box that is shipped a year ago, April 12th, exactly. But the team have added some features to that, just in case of bidirectional generation, which is called feature pack. Feature pack for Visual Studio Ultimate or for Visual Studio Architecture. feature pack for Visual Studio Ultimate or feature pack for architecture, Visual Studio architecture tools. That is just a power tool that can be downloaded from Microsoft, and it can be installed here in Visual Studio, and you can do absolutely the stuff combined. Okay? That is just to keep in mind. And from that perspective, you can from your code to your model, or from your model to the code. It depends on which pattern, which methodology you use, which concepts you use to develop your software inside your organization. Right? So, I would like to show you one of the things, but oh man, okay, maybe I don't have that here, but okay, I told you about the whole picture of the architecture. Now we have the ability to make new diagram. Now we have the ability to make some directed graph, email. By the way, sorry. I was too fast. Diagram. So, no. Where is it? Where is it? No. And there's Email Explorer. Okay, so Email Explorer. Then we have new diagram. You see all the diagrams I have just shown you. That is the way how you can create that. From Visual Studio, just an architecture, and you can create the email diagram, the sequence diagram, and use case diagrams, activities, components, later in the directed graph document if you want. Just to document your graphs you have inside your application in order to combine that as well. So when we use case diagram, just from here, when you are here, we have the toolbox, and inside the toolbox we have any elements, every elements we need to make the use case diagram. Let's start with actors. Voila. Then an ellipse, which is you can use ellipse, but you can use use case. That is what you want. Go away. This one. Yeah, and I can associate my actor to my use case, just to give an idea. All from your Visual Studio environment. Okay? So, but we are talking about integration. We are talking about integration. We just saw the project management stuff. Okay? From here, I can combine that with my Visual Studio. And I can combine that with my work items. Back to the project management. Okay? As you see, that are all of them. I can make that part of my step if you want. Okay. Done. That is in this case. The other thing is in case of generation. When I go back to my application, right here, and for instance, from my application done just from where is it? Just controller, which is logic, account controller, for instance. Maybe I have already another source code, or geolocation or something like that. Just geolocation, where I use some services just to get some information about the location of some restaurants in this case, because I'm not creating a new dinner application, so I have to know where I am via web service to locate all information about the restaurants in that. So that is just logic. That's just a class. So now I am creating this one, but I'm interested to see how the sequence diagram of this part of code looks like. Okay, the only thing I have to do is, when I'm now here, right mouse click, and you see all the abilities you can do. So one of them is generate the sequence diagram. I am now from the code. You have just seen, just from the code. You saw from the model into the code. Now, otherwise, from the code into the model. What you see when I do generate, it gives me some information how deep I can go in my architecture, how deep I want to go in my implementation, high level or deeply or whatever. Okay, let's go. Let's see 6 level. Okay, then just for my current solution, and just some information to exclude cost to properties and events. Otherwise, I will get a lot of information on the graph. That's not visual. Okay, but if you want, I can absolutely interact that. I can absolutely include that. But in this case, I skip it because otherwise it will be too full. Yeah, and system namespaces. I don't want to have system namespaces on that. Just to visualize how my sequence diagram looks like for that part of code inside my application. Okay, then when I do okay, the same thing is happening behind the scenes, and yes, we got now the sequence diagram of the application, that part of the application. You see, place order Z, you see some information, the call of the service, some implementation of enumeration, and some other implementations for loans, lat loans. So what you see here is just for that part, small part of the code, that is the sequence diagram what looks like. Making use of link technology, link to SQL and that kind of stuff. You, Mr. Mr. SQL. What do you prefer, link of SQL or entity framework? And why? We can start discussion afterwards. Good. Okay? That's just to give you an idea. Now from the code to the model. Okay? That kind of stuff that can now be done from Visual Studio Ultimate. And you can do a lot of other stuff. Looks like that looks like this one, in order to get your information of the application done the right way. Okay? So I would like to see if I have some layer diagram on my dependency layer diagram. Which one is this? Oh man, this is empty. Layer diagram. When I go to the toolbox, okay, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, okay. So that is the GUI. That is the BLL. I'm not telling you the magic, I'm just telling the right architecture stuff. Maybe something like web services, which this one. Another layer which is data access layer, right? Okay, that's what they can do right now. And the relationship, go away. I do it this way. So, as they are close to each other, and maybe I can create another layer here. Or here, doesn't matter where, which is the common layer. Here you can sort everything about security, blah, 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 blah. All the shared, all the helper, security, configuration stuff will must be stored here. And the logic of your application, which is by part of your application, depends on which technology you choose, you can store there. So you see, that is also a dependency graph, or a layer diagram of the application. That is, as architect, that is something you have to start with to make your architecture. Okay, and as well, this one is well integrated with Visual Studio because I can do everything. I can validate my architecture. Okay, I can now take pieces of code from my application, which is this one, controller. Yeah, the view. The model, you see? Now, if I do validate the application of the architecture, it will not work because what is this? Just override, and your application or your layer diagram is validated. If it goes good, then everything is okay. If it will notify you. There and there you have to make modifications. So there and there you have to do that. Then it's good. So from the model into the code. Step 1. That's now, because I'm now beginning from the source code, then back to the architecture. But you have to do it otherwise. Just begin with the architecture, and from there you can create your own your source code. It's not just to show you it works. No, it's just to give you an idea how you can do this right now. Check. Okay, what is this? Whoa. Okay, invalid dependency. Okay, invalid dependency. That is absolutely, yeah. That are just dependencies of the code. Okay. But just to share idea. That's the idea here. Okay. Good. So. Back to the slides. Everything I showed you can be made in. You see now, the email modeling is now integrated in Visual Studio Ultimate. It is part of the product. It can. Why? Because Microsoft have now joined OMG. OMG is this international organization that certified all email stuff, not only from Microsoft, but from other companies as well. And you see now that we have the ability to use use cases, activity diagrams, sequence diagrams, component and class diagrams, and deployment diagrams as well. That means, in terms of collaboration, when a software architect from the development platform or development division is busy with architecting his application, let you see from the beginning, it is absolutely a must to keep in touch with the infrastructure architect. You see, the software architect from one division, development division in this case, have to be in contact with the infrastructure architect, which is part of the other operation or other division, because he is now architecting, the software architect is architecting the application that will be built, and that application at the end will be deployed on that infrastructure. Both architects have to keep in contact with each other to justify from the beginning if the thing that is architected there and it is can take place there. Why? Because suppose he is architecting, he is very innovative. He is using new technology in terms of Visual Studio, for instance. And he will develop a system inside Visual Studio 2010, and he will target everything to .NET Framework 4. Okay? But we have a support division somewhere in the organization, but the guys there are a little bit lazy. And they are just sticking into supporting a .NET Framework 2 or 3, not yet 4. If it is the case from this side, and there is no communication with the other side, and the application is done here, and you deploy it here, it will absolutely no go. You got it? That's why both architects have to keep in contact from the beginning, just to justify the architecture in this way, to validate the architecture, and where needed to make what we name the deployment diagrams, and to validate that from the beginning on that, and if it is work, then it's okay, everything is done. Then you know from that moment that everything you do in your development life cycle might absolutely not be a problem later by deployment stuff. Okay? Just for your information. Okay, so layer diagram, this is something we saw as well. By the way, Microsoft, just from the patterns and practices division, they deliver the guidance how to do that, step by step. And they have as well some graphs already ready from the Windows applications, for web applications, for Windows, for devices, and for web services. Already ready. You have just to fill them with your code. That's all. Separated as well. If you want to see that, come at the end. I will show you how the magic goes. Good. So, Architecture Explorer, we saw that as well. Everything we draw on the diagram, it will be stored in Architecture Explorer, like actors or use cases, blah blah. And the relationship between system elements. You see what the relationship is between the system elements of the whole application. Okay? Good. Now, as I can guess,